welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And the movie I want to talk about today comes from 1948. This is Fort Apache, starring John Wayne, Henry Fonda, Shirley Temple, Pedro Armendariz, directed by John Ford. This is the first of his cavalry trilogy, which includes She Wore a Yellow Ribbon and Rio Grande. And it's a story of a Lieutenant Colonel Thursday who is traveling from the east by stagecoach. He believes he has been passed over. He's being somehow punished by being sent to this distant outpost where he will just linger in obscurity. He's a man who needs to find glory, and he doesn't see any opportunity for glory here. And he's very rigid as far as regulations go. He's humanized a bit by his daughter, Philadelphia Thursday. We get some great names here, and because he obviously loves his daughter very much. But other than that, he is a tough cookie, and he's going somewhere where he really doesn't belong. He's going to a very tight-knit community out in Fort Apache. This is a community that relies on a sense of a protocol of rank. Rank is very important here, but also a community that has to adopt to the situation which they are in, which is much different than what they might be experiencing in the East. Now they're in the West. This is the manifest part of the story of the manifest destiny. And we see women here, and we see the wives of the officers and the non-commissioned officers. And so when Shirley Temple, Philadelphia Thursday, arrives, she doesn't know what to do. They quickly bring her into the fold, look after her. And this community is also tied together by rituals, and especially dances. Dances are very prominent in John Ford films, and there's two here. The second one is really significant because Ford creates the march, where this is at the non-commissioned officers' dance, in which the officers also attend, and they march in line as if they were doing army marches. They start with one couple. They go in a rectangular shaped march, and then when they get to the starting point again, then the second couple unites with the first couple, and so on until there's four couples marching together, which is very much emblematic of the togetherness that they have to feel. And certainly they're in danger being here in Indian country, and Cochise has left the reservation. So current Lieutenant Colonel Thursday is there to try to bring Cochise back to the reservation. He has no respect whatsoever. He views for Cochise, and these indigenous people are subhuman. They can't possibly be able to deploy superior tactics, to defeat the army in its great, its great ability and training. But Colonel Thursday is up against guerrilla warfare here. And this really plays out this kind of colonialism versus the indigenous people in the U.S. particularly, but certainly in countries all around the world, in which the advanced society supposedly faces down the indigenous people who don't have nearly the firepower that the colonial invaders have. So Colonel Thursday believes, well, that's the reason. Why are you afraid of Cochise? Well, John Wayne's character, Colonel York, he and his experienced troops, they understand the danger of Cochise, and he is a great tactician, which Colonel Thursday just poo-poos. So we get a long section. I got to mention it because there are things in John Ford films that modern day audiences don't like. The broad comedy of new recruits who can't have to learn to march, and then there's yet another scene with them where they have to learn to ride a horse. Historic truth of that was they would have learned all that before they were sent out to a distant cavalry outpost to fight the Apaches. And then alcohol too. Ford thinks alcoholism is so funny. There's so much boozy humor in many of his films, but in the midst of that, we get the Henry Fonda, John Wayne confrontations, and these are terrific. John Wayne was a very underrated actor. Henry Fonda was a stage-trained actor, and of course Wayne was a movie star. He worked by instinct and all the B westerns that he made before in the 1930s, before Ford hired him for Stagecoach, which made him a star. These confrontations, these arguments about the reality of the situation versus this idealized view of himself in Colonel Thursday, because Colonel York, John Wayne's character, he has empathy for the Indians. He understands how mistreated they've been, especially through the Agency of Indian Affairs, I think it was called, which was totally corrupt, and they so paternalistic, and they sold rotgut whiskey. And Cochise says in one of the speeches you see Cochise give in the movie, that he's making the men all drunks, and they selling shoddy goods. They give them rifles that don't work, and Cochise's main gripe is, I'll come back to the reservation, but you got to get rid of that Indian agent. Fonda understands the reality and is disgusted by the Indian agent, but he's a member of our government. He's a representative of our government. When Colonel York mistreats Meacham, is the name, very memorable character in this movie. So this sympathy for the Indians in 1948 was very unusual. I mean, this was definitely, and the film evokes General Custer and Custer's Last Stand, another story about a man who searches for glory in fighting the Indians. And and Cochise and the Indians, the film almost seems like it's on their side. And for 1948, this is pretty unusual. And Ford was often criticized by people like Tarantino, who think that he was a racist and just wanted to kill the Indians. Now, he might not have seen this movie. Did he see Fort Apache? Because you might even say this is a cavalry movie that's pro-Indian. 1948. Of course, in the 1950s, this sympathy for the plight of the Indians and our mistreatment of them gained some truth within the community at large, and there were other movies that would too show the Indians in a sympathetic light. So we are, and all this is being filmed in Monument Valley, and this is Ford's third movie in Monument Valley, Stagecoach, and the Wyatt Earp movie, whose name escapes me at the moment. My Darling Clementine. These are vistas that were new to audiences. They're very familiar to us today because Ford and other movie directors made so many films set in Monument Valley. I was there 40 years ago. Believe me, even if you're familiar with it from the television ads and the movies, it's a place worth seeing. It is genuinely one of the most majestic sights I've ever seen. So it really adds to the beauty of this film, which was filmed in infrared. So the skies and the clouds in the sky, and very, very big contrast between the blacks and the whites. And then we have probably the last 20 minutes of the film, which is pretty spectacular. Ford films this from a distance. A lot of it is obscured by dust, but it has a great emotional impact here, and especially in the scenes with, again, with Fonda and Wayne. And then we get to Coda here. And the Coda seems empty after what you've watched previously. It comes very quickly, it's very abruptly. It doesn't hold true to what this film, almost 2-hour film that we have seen. It basically makes the case that we need heroes. So even though Colonel Thursday was incompetent and he was no hero, for sure, but he was made a hero, just as Custer was made a hero. Custer and they died with their boots on. He was glorified. Had been glorified right after the battle, Little Bighorn. But if you know anything about Custer's life, his career, he was an egotistical. He wasn't a dummy, but he was taking risks beyond any common sense. He too, like Colonel Thursday, searching for glory. But he was made a hero, so this Custer story, we're seeing Ford's contradiction here, in that he makes the case, the film makes the case at least, that we need heroes. And if we have to lie about it, if we have to whitewash the hero and what he did, so be it, because it's made clear that the regiment, and inferring that the country at large, needs heroes to form a national identity, even though they're lies. The contradiction here is that while Ford seems to be telling us this, he's also showing us the actual truth of the matter. And again, the same way in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. And this is a jolt, and you wonder, is Ford serious? What is he really trying to say here? In the interviews, he says it very clearly, but I'm not so sure. I don't think that Ford ever worked out many of the contradictions in his films. Of course, that's what makes them. that's what makes them interesting. Ford's greatness. Ford's greatness certainly comes from these stories, the surrounding poetic vision of Ford, the poetic vision of our history, and it's complicated. Excuse me. So Ford's career here, before the war, he was the most prestigious film director in Hollywood, won several Academy Awards. How Green Was My Valley, Grapes of Wrath, The Informer, Young Mr. Lincoln. Highly influential around the world, Akira Kurosawa, worshipped Ford, as did Orson Welles. So Orson Welles, making Citizen Kane, learning how to make a film, he studied, he emphasizes over and over that Ford was the great director that he wanted to study as he was preparing Citizen Kane. Ford started his own company, Argosy. He had worked for the studios, the big, with Darryl Zanuck and Sam Goldwyn, and he wanted to be more independent after the war. The war had scarred him, and his dream project was The Quiet Man, which was made about 5 years later. But his first film for this new production company, Argosy, was The Fugitive, with Henry Fonda. Big flop. His company was deeply in debt on the first movie. This was a big hit. He figured it would be a big hit. He made it for commercial reasons. Henry Fonda, his screen persona was molded with John Ford, and these iconic roles like Wyatt Earp and Tom Joad and Abraham Lincoln. But Fonda didn't really like the movies. He saw himself as a stage actor. So right after this movie, at the peak of Fonda's career, he spent 6 years on Broadway playing Mr. Roberts. Sort of movie career suicide in a way, you would think. And then when that run was over, he wanted to make the movie, and he hired John Ford. They fought, and 2 weeks into the shooting, Ford left the film. They never talked again. And Fonda's career after that, I don't know. I should have looked it up, but I guess 12 Angry Men is the most significant film that he made. But even there, that's not so much Fonda is sort of part of the concept. The 12 Angry Men is sort of a concept movie with very predetermined type characterizations. Here Fonda gives a very complex performance here, because there is a way that even Colonel York can admire his sense of duty. John Wayne, unlike Fonda and Ford, did not serve in World War II, so he was a star. Wasn't yet a superstar. Ford didn't think he was an actor. I don't know what he was seeing here. John Wayne is this is one of his best roles, and his other two roles in the subsequent Cavalry trilogy are also excellent. I think his next film was Red River, and Ford said, well, that now I can see Wayne is a pretty good actor. But he's pretty terrific here. And of course, in the 50s, they would make many films together, and the peak obviously being The Searchers. Pedro Armendariz, he gets a starring credit here. He's in the top 4. Great Mexican actor, many John Ford films. He's terrific here. He is the go-between between Colonel York and Cochise, and later Colonel Thursday and Cochise. He plays a great interpreter. A big star in Mexico, if you're following my Buñuel series, Armendariz is the star of a couple of Buñuel Mexican films I haven't talked about yet. And in fact, the actor who plays Cochise is one of the stars of one of Buñuel's most famous films, Los Olvidados. Film, as I said, was a hit, good reviews. Bosley Crowther, a famously grumpy movie critic of the New York Times, he praised it. Ford was really, a very prestigious director. He lost some of the prestige through the 50s because he was making all these Westerns, and even though Westerns were popular with audience, they didn't have the same prestige that movies like The Grapes of Wrath or How Green Was My Valley would have. So a really interesting movie. I'd be curious to see some reactions to how we're to interpret that coda. And I will be covering, hopefully, the 2 other movies that Ford, part of Ford's Cavalry trilogy. And I'll probably go out of order. I'll do Rio Grande next, and then say She Wore a Yellow Ribbon for the final one, which was when Wayne is an old veteran about to retire from the cavalry. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who listened. I appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.